I mean, sure, we're getting a $2 million advance, but you know, by the time you go to Starbucks, you know.
It's right out the window. Before we end, and I've always wanted to...
Musicians know I'm kidding about the advance.
Hey, it's Russ and Ryan from AMS, and we had the absolute pleasure of sitting down with guitar legend Steve Morse.
We discuss what makes us better musicians, collaboration, creating signature tone, and the gear that makes it all possible. Steve?
Oh.
Did we start? Because
yeah,
did we start? Get mesmerized.
We were watching you play before, and you know, some people, they'll get a signature guitar or a signature amp, and it has all these features, and they're like, yeah, I really only use one. And I was marveling at how often you were switching the knobs, the switches to different pickups, to everything. You know, really utilizing it to create the phrasing that you're trying to come up with.
Definitely. Then that's I love the guitar for that, because it gives me all the choices. So I've got this pickup what I just went to play clean with a super distorted high gain setting. Oh, I still have the gain on 10.
Timed.
Yeah, but it doesn't sound fizzy.
I could use it on 4. It still got distortion.
Yeah.
But that cleans it up even more. So I could play. This is the distorted.
Incredibly dynamic.
So I'm using the tone control for and the warm pickup, and the bridge pickup, the two together. So I'm always change pickup. When I'm up high, I'm a lot of times on the neck pickup. That shift to this one. Turn my mute off.
No, but and to see how your right hand and left hand are working in concert, it just seems like it's second nature to you. I would really have to spend a lot of time even coming close to that.
You'd be surprised what you could do in a couple minutes of just saying, okay, when you cross this point, switch to this pickup. When you do that, go to this pickup. And I know a lot of people say, well, if I have to switch pickups, there's something wrong with the guitar. Well, no, if you have to switch gears in a car, it doesn't mean there's something wrong with the car. It means it's more efficient in this gear because you've already got this speed and you're in a different speed range. Mm-hmm. I'm in a different frequency range. I have a better pickup for that, you know.
So that makes sense.
But that's an interesting analogy, because you're an you have engineer backgrounds, tendencies. You really dive in that way, and now you're looking at the guitar the same way you might be looking at driving or working on a car. I think that's one of the things that I particularly admire is your approach, because you're constantly striving for something. I mean, this guitar that we're looking at didn't happen overnight, right? That was that's a story in and of itself of how Telly body, Strat neck, and Les Paul bridge.
Yeah, natural evolution. The necessity breeds that. I started with a Stratocaster, and first thing I discovered, I had that the angle input. One of my friends had this distortion box that had a plug sticking out of it. It was looked like a wall wart with a 1/4-inch plug. Well, I couldn't plug it in because of that. So that became the first mod. Was go my dad. He was so patient with me, but I went to his workshop and found a conduit cover, a round conduit box cover, and I think drilled a hole in that, and that became the new cover. And I was a kid. It was taped on. So
How old were you when that?
like 11.
Wow. Okay.
So when I was able to plug it in and try it, and it sounded like crap. So that didn't work. I kind of left this for a while, and then the next thing was, why can't I do? Why can't I get that sound with a Strat? You know, especially before I had the Vox amps. Vox had middle range boost, middle range, mid range. That's where the guitar needs the customization. Well, I couldn't get that sound with anything I had until I got the Vox Super Beetle transistor version, which had 3 middle range boost settings, different frequencies. And that helped a lot. That helped give me, you know, sort of an ability to emulate a humbucker. But when I finally got a Telecaster as payment for doing a session and discovered that the neck would bolt on, it was like, oh, wow. Because the Tele had a maple neck, and I didn't like the feel of the maple neck. So I said, well, back to Dad's workshop. Got this Phillips screwdriver, put it on there. All right, cool. Now, how do I fix this? The Tele bridge had 2, 2, 2. And in the day that it was invented, people were using wound thirds and wound fourths. So putting a wound third and fourth together wasn't so radical. Now you take an unwound third and a wound fourth. Now you got intonation problems, because, you know, when you wind a string, it's much fatter, and as it comes over the bridge piece, you know, it's kind of doing this. It's not like instantly curving like an unwound string would. So I guess the center of the apex of the turn of the string was off, so that the single piece bridge couldn't compensate for the difference in tuning between the unwound and wound string. That was the bottom line. So I said, first of all, I've got to fix that. And I went down to the guitar shop, and they had only the Gibson Tunematic bridge. So I said, well, that's going to be a challenge, but all right, I'll take it.
How old are we now?
This was when I was older. I was a teenager, 14, 15.
14, 15, okay.
So you were a man at that point.
Sorry, you were
It was
saying.
before Google. Otherwise, my parents would have said, you know, we don't need Google since you apparently know everything.
Oh, well.
No, I was still in my phase where it's okay to ask questions and try things. But we were encouraged to do, you know, to try things and make things. If you didn't have something, if you didn't have a game, you would make up one or make one out of whatever you did. So the Tunematic would go on there, but now I had this big piece that came off with one of the things I didn't like about the Tele at high gain was the treble pickup would feed back. And, you know, the guys playing country and session musicians never have that problem because their amps are isolated or they're playing maybe at a volume. I was playing at Hendrix volume, you know. I was a teenager, had a Super Beetle and stuff. So I had a problem with that feeding back. And Fender had just come out with their first humbucking pickup. So I said, it's a Fender Telecaster. There's a Fender humbucking.
Go for it.
Went down and bought it, put it in, and it was huge. It was like
The wide range?
Yeah, yeah. Felt like I was putting a flat screen TV in. The reason I say that is because I had to, with a chisel and a hammer to make it
in there.
We didn't have a router, so I put that in there, and that sort of began the whole thing. And I put the lipstick pickup next to it, and then had a regular Gibson in the next position, Gibson humbucker. Started there and then kept evolving, and I said, no, I'm the Fender humbucking. Works. And Larry DeMarzo Larry DiMarzio and Steve Blucher came to the rescue, and you know, they like Horst. They would give me windings. Here, try this. You don't like that? Okay, what don't you like about it? And okay, here, try this. And finally, we found one that I said, yeah, this is great. This is giving me the contrast that I need. So natural evolution, and that's how the amps with ENGL came about. The ones that I use.
Right.
And there's no substitute for trying things and making those adjustments and having that organic evolution.
And it seems to me like you just have an idea of what you want, and you're going to keep pushing until you get that. So a lot of what we play through is a compromise. Okay, it's good enough, whatever. But it seems to me like you have always said, no, it has to be exactly this way. And
well, not exactly, but
no?
There is a compromise with everything. But I try to shift the. You know, I sort of think of like a tone is where does it sound the best and where are the fringe areas? You know, the fringe areas we can maybe use, but where it sounds the best is what I'm really thinking about, like the tone center more than you know every. So there's always compromises when you're designing anything, and to me the best, I guess the most useful things are the ones that do lots of things well. And that's that's what this guy does. For some reason, when I'm bringing my own rig in my pickup truck and I don't have a cover of the truck, I don't want everything to get wet if it's going to start raining, so I put it in the little right behind the seat. There just isn't room for a whole big rig, and so I kept saying, well, can't we have a small version of this? And one that I can lift easier, because you know a big amp head in a case and everything. So they came up with this. You know, the handle pulls down. It's lightweight enough to be able to lift at arm's length,
right? Which
is awesome. Because when you're putting things in your vehicle, you're at arm's length a lot, and it has. Well, everything you need. Direct out. There's 8 IR simulators to simulate speaker cabinets. If you want to just use this as, like, you can call it a modeling amp or whatever, but it's not. It's a real tube amp. But you can use it like that, where you go direct in the PA and no speakers at all. And right now I have it on the 1 watt setting. That's what because we're at conversation level. I don't want to be, talking. So when I was playing with the band, I had it on the 5 watt setting. And if I was playing loud with the band, I would put it on the 20 watt setting. And of course you still have master volume. So you can, those range settings will overlap, and there's usable ranges all over the place. Anyway, the designer from ENGL Horst was able to bring me some prototypes. They had another small amp already, and I was saying what I wanted to change on it. And all right, there was a lot of things I wanted to change, but the guys are great. They're super patient with me. So we worked on different things, concentrating on the mid range. I'm a big mid range guy, and I don't want an amp that's shrieky, high-end tinny. That drives me nuts. So it was all about how do we get that warm mid-range that I love so much about my 100 watt head, and that's what we concentrate on. And then we had another session where he would bring the prototype back to a gig, and I could mess around with it backstage, and try and get the tone centers, so that depending on which speaker you're plugged in or what the EQ is like that you're plugged into directly, that basically if you put everything on, mid-range or the pointers at 12 o'clock, from top to bottom, if you plug your guitar in and it doesn't sound good, it just means your chord isn't working. So those are the kind of things. And then we had a lot of discussions about what features. And I said, well, if I'm doing a gig, I want to be able to use reverb delay. And so they build them in. This is the built-in reverb into. I have it brought up more than I would use, just so you can hear it. You know, so you can be. There's
pretty
both
wet,
a delay
yeah.
and you can separate them out, and you can have as many different presets. You can turn them on and off here.
Okay.
And of course, you know, delay. And there's another thing called delay boost, or I'm sorry, mid-range boost.
When you were weighing in on both the delay and the boost, was there a particular pedal in your history that you had in mind, like a memory man on the delay side or something along those lines where you were kind of targeting in your mind?
The TC flashback delay has, you know, they allowed different artists to make their own
Tone print?
presets. Yeah, the tone print, exactly. So you can just buy one off the shelf and download from the internet, you know, which tone print. And of course, I download mine because it's exactly the parameters I want. And so, yeah, that's a big inspiration for everything. And a delay that trails off a little bit in the tone as each repeat has like a tape delay, has less and less high end. But that was the boost. I was just demonstrating. So you got a noise gate that actually works.
What a great idea.
But it doesn't clip. I think I have the noise gate on, yeah. But check out, I mean, full distortion.
Yeah.
Same distortion.
It's not clamping down on everything.
You can bear. I mean,
level
I have it.
Yeah,
I have it at the
absolutely.
minimum setting, but it's awesome. It's like the best noise gate I've ever used for that reason. Is that it's so transparent. There's a tiny.
Okay, you can hear your nails on the strings.
That's like 1/100th of the guitar volume. Okay, there you go.
One thing that was with this too, that was, Rich, you can't see it from here, but on the back,
I can
as
see it.
far as the delay and the reverb are concerned, it actually has the knobs that you can dial
Yes.
in terms of, you know, it's almost like a little pedal on the back
Yeah.
as far as the controls are concerned.
You got the delay time, the delay feedback amount, and then of
Noise
course
gate.
the mix.
as well.
Yeah, yeah, and the noise gate is very adjustable. Like I said, it's the
Well,
best.
it's really
noise
organic sounding, even at low volume. Like I said, I was just kind of taken by how rich it sounds. I mean,
Yeah.
it's nice to have a good player demoing it, but I mean, we used to take amps like that and go, well, because it's small and it's easy to use, I can put up with the fact that maybe it doesn't sound great. And now all those conveniences in one box, and it sounds good.
Yeah, and this they make a nice case for it, but you.
It's pretty
I came
tough.
from the last trip. I came home with it in my luggage.
Just
You know,
like that?
Just with my shirts wrapped around it, and it fits in any suitcase. So, and that's really cool. And I wasn't overweight with all my stuff.
And you could show up to it, like you could fly into a gig, and let's say they didn't have a backline for you. Between that guitar and that amp, you're there. I mean, you could pretty much make it work, right?
Yeah. That's the whole idea, is that if every place is going to have a Marshall cabinet, which I'm used to using about the same speakers, those vintage 30s or in the ENGL.
Right.
So that gives you something, something close that you can rely on.
So I got a curveball question to
Uh-oh.
derail us, go into a different topic here for a moment. What age did Bach come in your love for Bach and classical music into your musical path? Was it like early on?
No, wasn't really. It may have been. We're exposed to music that we don't even realize. The music is selling everything, and so the jingles, the stuff you hear in movies. In the older days, movies had more public domain kind of writing. And so you might hear some Beethoven, Bach, or Mozart in a movie.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, you'd hear stuff like the William Tell Overture
Right.
and the chase scenes.
Right.
But I think the biggest point for me was, as a teenager, I was just trying and exploring things. Maybe about when I was 13, I was like, I have to learn to read music.
Uh-huh.
And my grandfather was a fiddle player, and I never met my grandfather because he died from an accident very early in his life. But he played Cajun fiddle, and my mom would tell me about it, and she eventually, when she thought that I wouldn't wreck it, she gave me his fiddle. And in there was a book about Bach violin partitas. So, wow, this guy's, I thought he, a Cajun fiddler would have no use for that, but there it was in there. So I took that book and started trying to learn to play some of the stuff. And, I hadn't yet gotten a formal education, so it was like, what I learned from playing song flute or clarinet in school was like, okay, this is that, so this is that, this is concert pitch. And I figured it out and discovered that everything he wrote made sense and everything sounded good on any instrument. And the stuff that didn't make sense was him putting dissonance that needed to be resolved. So if you played it slow, those little passing notes that add tension to it. Once you play it at speed, you would see that, that does make sense, and that's awesome. So I quickly learned this was the guy that was like a heavy metal master to me. His fast stuff sounded fantastic, fast, and the slow stuff was beautiful. Everything was beautiful. The middle voices on his chorales were beautiful. When I heard switched on Bach, and then later the well-tempered synthesizer by, now Wendy Carlos, played on the Moog synthesizer, one track at a time with perfect execution. Then it really became alive. And that, here I am as a 15-year-old going like, this is incredible, listening, just like doing nothing but listening. And that became a huge inspiration for me. It was like, that's composition. That's this music. The music itself is moving me to want to do that, on guitar. So, yeah, there was 2 points. One was learning the Bach violin partitas, and then a few years later was hearing the switched on Bach, and then it was like, okay, I get it. I need to learn how to be a composer.
And where do you integrate into improvisation into all that? Because usually I grew up classically trained, and you'd say improvise, and it was like, I don't want to put the sheet music in front of me. Like, where'd you get that split between the two?
Well, Ari, rock and roll, as a kid, we played gigs, like dance gigs and stuff, where take a lead, Steve. That would be a solo, and each time you try to maybe get better, and throw things in. So improvising was part of it. No one in any band I was ever in said, no, you got to learn the solo from the record. Because we did. And the solo from that on the 12s. It's kind of like, I don't know who played it. I don't know if it's Pete Townsend or one of his British friends that was in the studio playing it. But it's really individualized, very stylized form of playing on that solo. So I just like the solo, the 12-string solo on 8 Miles High by the Birds.
I was just thinking that. Yeah, there's still that kind of, I don't know what mode that is, but you hear it. Yeah.
That was...
It's a little bit of a raga or something in there.
You try to get the vibe of it, but then do your own take on the solo. Everybody in every band I was in was fine with that, and that's the way I grew up. Was like, you hint at the solo and then do your own thing. So improvisation was normal. And the more I learned about Bach, he was an improviser. He had to do so many musical jobs and come up with so much stuff that he could sit there at the pipe organ and improvise a few, because he's written so many and done it. He did it constantly. It was just part of his thing. That was the legend of Bach, was that he could improvise in more than one voice at a time. And I thought that was awesome. So it just always became a thing. And I tried to stay away from bands where they were like, well, here's the gig, you learn the solos like the record. And,
I was going to ask about that. I mean, because clearly you were in Deep Purple probably longer than any other guitar player in their long history. And I would imagine coming in there, you're like, well, look, I know what I'm capable of. I know what I can do. But the people will also want to hear certain parts of what Ritchie Blackmore did or Tommy Bolin or whatever. It seemed to me you paid respect to the bones of that stuff, but you still brought your own personality to it.
Yeah, and that's a tightrope. Like anything we were talking about, everything you have to weigh and find where you think the balance point, and so there's a compromise. Do I play it my own style only, or do I play it like the record? No, we try to find something in the middle. And, the rich fans would say, no, no, you didn't. And the people, they're, just jam, dude. Why are you doing that? Just do your own thing. So to me, I was kind of more in the middle, a little bit more stylized, individualized than like the recording. You can't please everybody, basically. At some point, you have to make a choice. And it's not that I made a choice, it's just I naturally tended to do that way. I was in cover bands off and on my whole life. Just like, well, everybody my age. If you wanted to make any money, you had to be in a cover band if you were going to be an instrumental composer.
Yeah.
Well, it got to the point where I saw you, because I watched your career evolve before Purple and then in Purple, how much fun you were having with it. When you would do the Morse's Jukebox or something where you would play like different riffs live, it was like, you kind of, I think there were probably a lot of people out there, especially Blackmore fans or things like that will talk smack, and you're like, I'm just going to have fun with this. Come along for the ride if you like it.
Yeah, I think the guys in the band got sick of it, but it was a fun thing to do for me.
Yeah, I love those videos. I think it looked like you were having fun.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. That's exactly what you see with me. What you see is what you get.
Yeah.
And to the dismay of many people in the band.
I don't know.
So when we play because we've ended as lovers as earlier, and that's a cover, and that's a kind of tying the line or towing the line between holding true to the Beckism going on there, and then also making it your own. What was going on through your brain when you were processing how you wanted to approach everything from that very distinct known melody line to the jam section and the like?
The main thing was, since I never played the song before with anybody, was how many times through was it before we
landed?
Yeah. Land from the solo and things about the arrangement. So that was more on my head than anything. And I was just kind of on autopilot, reacting, thinking, let's see if I can make a phrase out of this. Maybe I can go up here and then bring it down and have some contrast. And, in retrospect, after playing it, I could have had some more tonal variety and things. But when you're improvising, you get what you get. And I always tell people, I'd rather get a grade of 75% of, whatever I could ultimately do every night and play something different than to get a 95 doing the exact same thing. Because when I play parts that I've written for a song, they're melodies. And so, I try to get those repeatable and consistent,
Sure.
every night. But the solos, it just makes it more fun to me to have that risk element of, I don't know what's going to happen, but I hope something does.
Yeah, but what made it interesting for me, because I was lucky to just stand and watch it happen, it never looked like you were searching for it. It looked like you were letting it just kind of happen naturally without kind of going, where am I going to go with this? You didn't seem lost at all, but at the same time, it was a very different take on the Beck tune. But you still, like you said, you honored the spirit of the original.
And it was a cool thing for me to try, and something different, because at that tempo, there's lots of room, and, technique was not the big issue. Like if I was playing a fast bluegrass tune that I'd never played, it would have been, all right, what's your range? Can I come up with something to do here? Can I keep this energy going? And that would have been addressing the technical ability. What can I do and keep this tempo? That would have been a big deal. But here it was more wide open. It's like, think about melody, think about expression, try to do something different than the
Well, how do you improve on it? It's such a great song.
Yeah.
I mean, but your phrasing came to it, and it seemed like it was a natural fit, yet at the same time, I'm not listening to Jeff Beck. I was listening to you doing that song.
Made your mark.
That was the difference.
I made my mark, whether you like it.
So would you find that it's true if I said that you are your own worst critic of yourself?
Yeah, I don't know if I'm the worst critic, but
Well, there's a lot of people out there, but I just mean for yourself. It seems like we were standing around you going, oh my gosh, that was amazing, and
you were like,
man, let's do another round, and you had something going on that you felt you hadn't maybe quite attained in some way, shape, or form, but to us, the layperson, was like, oh my gosh, I'll play this all day long. You can. It just sounded unbelievable.
I wasn't sure exactly how we were going to approach it, but I thought it was going to be one take and that's it, and you're done. So in that one take, I think there was a little bit of be careful, be careful, be careful. Just like when you see people, crossing or going up a ladder or something that are not used to it. And somebody that's been working on a ladder all day long, they're carrying stuff on their back, they're doing one-handed, they're just
eating a sandwich.
Yeah. I wanted to be like that instead of, I've got to be careful, got to be careful.
But it didn't strike me that way. Just again, I was watching from 5 feet away, and it didn't seem to me like you were at all other than in the zone. Maybe maybe I didn't pick up on that.
Yeah, being able to say, well, now just do one for fun, and this may not even get used. Then that takes a level of stress off, and then you're like, okay, well, whatever, I'll try this. Boop, we'll drop the tool. Oh, no big deal.
Right, you just keep going.
Yeah, keep going.
Well, that's the number one rule, right? When you make a mistake live, just keep going. No one, you noticed it, but maybe no one else will.
Oh yeah, and in general, in life, if we're going to make mistakes, but if it's a mistake that causes somebody else harm or inconvenience, well, make the right thing to do is make it right with them. But if it's a mistake that only inconveniences you, don't beat yourself up. Just continue on. And I think, being from my generation, there just was more improv and more chances to play live, and less emphasis on being spectacular, more emphasis on making the people in the audience feel good.
Yeah.
And keeping them entertained, with variety and things like that.
Sure.
But now if you got a 3-minute, show me what you got, YouTube thing, well, yeah, I feel more alienated from that sort of reality, and tend more toward the let's as a band or as an entertainer, let's bond and make an experience with everybody in the room, and let's try things and be genuine.
So finding that balance between the improvising and the composition in your catalog, maybe particularly like Dregs and your solo stuff, Steve Morse band. When you hit the studio, what was that balance more often than not with improvisation and construction of melody and parts that were already established, not only with you, but also with your band members? So like first Dregs album, Freefall, right? You composed all 11 tracks on that album. Now you bring that to the band, and where does it go from there?
They allowed me to be there for all the recording. The record company didn't want me to be the producer, even though I had a really strong idea about what everybody's going to play and what needs to be done. But they allowed me to be there, so I could work, say, with Alan, the violinist. He would allow me to, sort of produce his solo. And we wanted everybody to do their own solos and have it be them. But it would be, me with one finger on the talkback button, the other on the remote control for the tape, going, no. On the second phrase, why don't you go up and you've always been doing downward things. Go up on there and give it some contrast. Okay, I'll punch in and then catch it. All right, yeah, that was good, except for the end, a little sharp there. All right, go ahead. All right, I got that last note. Awesome, now let's move on. And we sort of create and comp, so not comp, because we were not assembling it. It was punching in. So you had to make decisions on the fly a lot. That was something I asked to do and was allowed to do, was to try and get the best out of everyone. And the very last producer I worked with on the Dregs was Eddie Offord. Before I started, before then I had done 2 albums on my own, and so I was used to kind of taking charge of stuff, and he definitely didn't like the fact that I was erasing some stuff that was good in the hopes of punching in on something that was better. To me,
you sound like a producer. You sound like you were a producer, though, or a co-producer in that case.
Yeah, but he thought the guys were so good that I should have just left it. And that may be true, but like improvisation, when you do something and give it your all, you take it and learn from it. I would have done it the same, I think, given the limitations of a reel-to-reel tape, and the fact that all the tracks are taken up with tons of drums, like if we had different toms mic'd on different tracks, stuff like that. There just wasn't much room to comp things, so you had to, or I chose to punch in rather than keep whole takes, where I thought something could be improved.
Okay. Now, what about Flying Colors?
Flying Colors, different story.
Yeah.
Flying Colors, you got Mike Portnoy, who done his own stuff. Neil Morse, who's done tons of his own stuff.
Yeah.
Casey McPherson does his own stuff.
Dave,
who's he does his own solo album, but he works with me a lot. So I brought in Dave LaRue.
Okay.
And Neil Morse brought in Mike Portnoy, and we all kind of decided on Casey. So everybody was strong-headed with what they knew would work. Sometimes we would have disagreements about what it was that we're going to settle on. Ultimately it made better products, I think, by going through that process. But everybody was quick and knew what to do, so that when it came to a solo, you could just say, all right, you put a solo there and we'll come out of that and go into that. There was I would have nothing to say about the way that they would approach their solos. Maybe if Dave was doing a bass improv for an intro or something, I'd say, hey, go to some of that slap thing that you do, and make it real greasy and to set up the vibe for the song.
Was it relatively collaborative on that album with
Yes.
songwriting process?
Yes. We had the first album. Neil and I started working and wrote the genesis of a lot of the songs ourselves, but in general, it would be Neil Morse. Like he would like bring in a song that day, and I would, Mike would love it, and I would say, can we work with this and try to change it and then add some more sort of unusual things to it, And Casey would say, yeah, but that sounds kind of like 80s to me. And he would try to make it sound more modern than classic rock. So between the three of us, we quickly adjusted. And if you got up to do, like to go get a cup of coffee or something, when you came back, the song would be different. It was moving fast. Mm-hmm. And that happened to Neil. He brought a song in, and he was really attached to the chorus. But Casey and I changed it. Well, he was
which track is that? Do you recall?
No, I don't. I don't know which. It might have been Kayla.
Kayla?
No, because we did that together.
Blue Ocean.
All right, let me just say I can't recall, but
it's going to happen on your way out of here. Like, oh.
Yeah, I know. So Casey and I said, yeah, and we're going through it, and Casey's singing already, and Neil says, "What happened to my chorus?" I said, "Get a coffee, lose a chorus."
That's a good vibe right there. So what I hear you're playing, and this might sound overly hokey, but I know obviously you're an avid pilot. There's a certain soaring element to the way you play, and I don't know if you would equate that to what it's like taking a plane and taking off. But when I hear you playing that, there's this kind of majestic soaring quality to a lot of how you phrase things. And is that something you consciously go for?
It's something I tend to want to do. I like music that is inspirational. It lifts you up, and so as a result, I try and make my compositions or recordings or even solos, is to be proud and like I said, soaring and majestic, and to to just like you see the mountains, the mountains are more interesting when they have shape. And when they're not everywhere. If you live in the mountains all the time, it's no big deal. But if you're on the flat and you see the mountains, it's like, wow, that looks so cool. And I think everybody wants to climb a mountain and get that view from up there. Everybody does. And I do it daily with a little airplane. I go up at the end of every day and just sit up there and just say, yeah. This is a great view. And I didn't have to climb the mountain.
But there is an element of that in your playing when we were listening to you playing along with that Coldplay track. And it literally elevated the song. There was something to the way you were adding it. It was just like, that should have been there from the beginning. It really did lift it. And that's a pretty kind of lifted song anyway. It feels very kind of hopeful in many ways. And
beautiful.
Yeah, the melody is lovely. And it's like you said, it's garden variety chord progression, not to take it down, but in terms of what do you bring to something like that without it sounding like you're just aping something else?
Yeah, as a guy that would be on the session, that's the first thing I would try to do is see how much of that uplifting stuff I could get away with doing.
Get away with.
Well, I mean, I draw a line between being on a song like that where I had nothing to do with it, and it already exists. And
we foisted it upon you about 10 minutes before you played it. Yeah.
But I'm imagining I'm in a session doing that, where it would be more interesting to just try it on my own, and then give a mix of that to the producer and say, "What do you think about that?" Mm-hmm. But in reality, you don't get that chance to go home with your studio and perfect it. Sometimes you just have to react. Mm-hmm. And I remember a cartoon from the 70s or something where these guys were bringing in Blind Lemon. Somebody, all right, we're going to make an album with you. All right, ready? Burn. What?
You need to burn now.
Yeah. I feel that sort of expectation every time I am in a session. Like, all right, make it awesome.
But see, I think of you in like, you're a stalwart guy. You're always at the NAMM shows. You're playing with a lot of heavy hitters. When you go up there, I mean, it might be something that was put together 10 minutes before, like the Biff Baby All-Stars or something, where you're playing at the DiMarzio booth and you're playing with really guys who can really play like you can. And how do you put that hat on and go, okay, I know where to stand back or when to jump ahead? With players like that.
I love to talk about this. I don't know how long your batteries could last on these recorders. but yeah, to me, there's this thing here that my guitars have called the volume control. Ooh. And if you play through this amp, you could do something like, let's say you're in a strong chorus. There's 3-part harmony. Vocals. As opposed to, and when you're soloing, somebody else is soloing. It's what I do.
See, but you know to do that. I think that's the difference between a guitar player and a musician, is you're listening to the other people around you and
if you're
not
not
having to step over.
You're not interacting.
Right.
And so a lot of times when, like with Purple, when Don was playing a solo, I would, rather than turning down, I would make myself more scarce. Like say I just finished my solo. Or if I had to hit a power chord, I hit the power chord and then roll off the high end, so that I'm leaving some room for the upper part of the keyboards or even the vocals to come through, and just thinking about ways to where you can still support and be part of the structure, but leave room. I'm always trying to make it so that the sound man doesn't have to do anything. I assume he's got a good mix, and I like for the other people to do the same. When I solo, to make sure they're not playing over me.
Yeah, they're being gracious enough to give you that space. But a lot of that comes down to, you can learn all the technique in the world and all the phrasing in the world, but a lot of time it's about where is your ego in that mix, and how do you know when to back off and when to go, no, I'm going to assert myself here. You got to be on the same page with people, and that's not as easy as it sounds.
It's important when you find yourself in a group where people listen to you. And Biff Baby's All-Stars is a great example.
I'm glad I asked.
Every one of these guys can play, and it's effortless when you just, maybe by what you're playing, you can cue the band down. You guys were doing it too. One of the Souls things, I brought it down a little bit, and everybody just was reacting to it. I love that, because that's like a band.
Right.
And for those who aren't familiar, I mean, Biff Baby All-Stars it's Eddie Van Halen, Albert Lee, Steve Luke. I mean, like, that's a lot of notes, you would think. But it never went off the rails. It seemed like you guys were...
Well, John Ferraro on drums, that's a big part of it. He would direct the dynamics a lot. Jimmy Cox, unbelievably good keyboard player. He could play anything, but he like could teach with what he plays in one song. He could teach a whole course about supporting the song, and then anybody nods to him to take a solo, he just knocks it out of the park. One of those first take guys. And Sterling Ball always, when there was a drum solo, Sterling was at that time the head of a huge multi-million-dollar corporation, Ernie Ball Incorporated. And here's Ernie, the CEO of the company, or owner, or whatever you want to call him, crouching down so that the audience can see the drummer. Like he's crouching down like this, you know, like in just, he's so aware of the fact that it's not about him, it's about the drummer. And he learned that from Ernie Ball, who learned it from his dad, I'm sure. And I love that. I love that.
Humility?
Yeah, humility, exactly. But where you're not bringing an ego to the gig, you're bringing a support. You're there to do whatever it takes to make the building stronger.
Which it really can make the song transcend. Because again, the song we played before, you have three guys who are playing with you who feel ill-equipped. I mean, we're in theory, on paper, we're very intimidated at this concept. We're walking in to play with Steve Morse, but because of your humility, you made us feel so at ease to go into that, where we can enjoy now and think a little bit more in terms of the musicality that was going on, as opposed to, oh my gosh, I'm playing with Steve Morse. Oh my gosh, I'm playing with Steve Morse. It means a lot.
Well, you mean the part where I said, you call that a take in 3 minutes?
He went Buddy Rich on you there for a minute. Yeah.
No, that's an outtake.
Everybody was great. It's a daunting situation, in this day and age to do a cold take. Mm-hmm. It's really, and there was a time when it was part of our lives. We would bring new material to play at a gig. And now with the whole YouTubeization and social mediaization of life, it's not something that everybody looks forward to. Is having unscripted things, and I think you hit on something that's really important. Is feeling like everybody is working together, on the same. We decided on the arrangement, how many times through this, that. And I said, can we do 2/5 in the solos? So it's not just sitting on G forever. Mm-hmm. And you're like, okay, yeah, we can do that. And so I think we collaborated on some important key points beforehand. And I think that way we're all on the same page. And so we're all saying, yeah, there's a few changes. I got to remember that. Everybody was saying, I got to remember that. I got to remember that. And we asked for a drum fill before to cue the last, the end of the solo section. Yeah. And so everybody had something to remember, and we were all, I think, more or less equal. And that's a great place to start, where everybody, rather than, you guys, our Nashville guys going, yeah, can we get this over with? I got a thing to 1 o'clock. All right.
Yeah. Well, you did it with Andy just recently. We were talking about that earlier with Andy Wood sitting in with you guys, and him kind of like, he just rolled with the punches, and he did a phenomenal job.
Yeah.
But I'd imagine that despite his guitar, supremacy that he has going on, you also made him feel comfortable as well coming into that, where he felt like he was one of the gang.
Yeah. Well, he's like a football player that's, just come out the training camp, and he doesn't have to warm up or do anything. He's just ready to go.
Sure, but there's still that camaraderie section of it.
Oh yeah, definitely, yeah.
As opposed to even coming in as star QB, I'm gonna out shred Steve upward and downwards tonight. Like that was neither of your approaches. It was kind of this more camaraderie. Like let's get this going and have a good time.
Yeah, one of the best things about my job is I get to work with people that are outstanding in all different fields, outstanding in their fields. But
it's a farming joke.
Yeah, it's an album joke. Yeah. But a lot of them are guitar players, and I love to have that interaction, and especially off the stage, and see kind of where they're at. I love to watch them making normal decisions in life, and one of the things I do teach in the guitar seminars is about the way that we approach things in life, our philosophy, the way that we view challenge, the way we view when something is good enough to leave it. Mm-hmm. And So, yeah, I enjoy the talking and getting to know them as much as the playing too, because it's very instructive to me.
Do you find that, like you were saying, just thinking it through, like even within the studio itself, overthinking it and knowing when to leave it, are you of more that, has that been a struggle over the years, or is that something that you have really no qualms about? You don't need to do the 99th take,
That goes, I've seen it happen both ways with me. So sometimes on the solos, I'm more apt to give it a certain number of tries before I'd say, let's leave it. Or sometimes I said, let's not decide. I've got some, now with the computer recording, it's easy to have 3 decent solos and just leave it and then come back another day and listen and then say, well, I really like the second one, but maybe that part was weak in the beginning. See if we can take the other one from the other takes and put it on there, something like that. With the composition, I tend to be to look at it more and be more critical for a while. And at some point, once you hear it enough times, it becomes, of course it's that way. And so you're less susceptible to changes, But when I'm in the writing mode of putting things together, then I'm looking at it a lot and going, oh, this makes me uncomfortable. This I love. This makes me uncomfortable. What can I do? What's the answer?
Okay.
And a lot of times I can't decide right then and there. I can't find the answer. And so, like I always say, take it and put it aside and work on something else. Compartmentalize it. Come back to it later or maybe another day. And always listen with fresh ears, and your first impression will tell you more than, pouring over it.
So how about too many notes? What logic, which bucket were you in when you did a song like that?
Oh, just trying to do a super challenging sort of exercise.
Uh-huh. Was that like, how many takes did it, before you felt like, no, that's the one?
Oh, doing it at Temple. Yeah, it took some takes because the middle part is so friggin' hard. And at the end, it's got that one change up.
Yeah.
And that was so hard to get. Yeah, and then, we kept playing it live after that for years. A lot of years. And that kept me practicing from the time I wrote it. It kept me practicing for about 15 years straight.
Were you mad at yourself? Like, why did I write this? Why did I do this?
No, I look forward to it. I look forward to it as a challenge. But yeah, it was a busy piece.
It definitely is. And you were telling us earlier that you had some other things that are in the works right now with Dave and.
Yeah, we're working on some new material for the Steve Morse band, and probably got record company ready to put it out. And it's different than recording now is different because you're doing, it is a charity event, if not an out-of-pocket event.
For sure.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, sure, we're getting a $2 million advance, but by the time you go to Starbucks,
It's right out the window. Before we end, and I've always wanted to.
Musicians know I'm kidding about the advance.
I thought it was serious. I thought it was
comments are like lighting up.
I've always marveled. I could watch you play, and just looking at your hands, I would know it was Steve Morse, just based on how particular your right hand is stuff of legend. But I always look at what your left hand is doing. Can you talk about your vibrato and how you came about with that? Because it's so iconic.
Well, my vibrato changed over the years.
Okay.
I used to have a more frenetic, and probably because I was just younger and more full of it, And I think from playing with Purple, I got more. more comfortable with a bigger, wider. To help bring, tune up my vibrato, I do bends, scalar bends. And you can just do like a simple exercise. Two fret bends with each finger. Then start adding some vibrato. And control it from that way. I preload a lot of bends. And a straight note that goes into a nice, sweet, controlled vibrato is pleasing to the ear. And, that's a vocal thing. Making the guitar more vocal is, we have so many different ways that we can individualize the instrument. And like you're saying, a lot of guitarists you can recognize from those little choices that they make. And there are so many ways to play a melody. It's still possible to be unique.
With the same 12 notes, right?
Yeah, that's it.
But again, with your vibrato, it's you're bringing in semitones. It's more than just taking a blues lick and shaking it at the end. Like I'm hearing that kind of. There is tension and release in a lot of that.
Yeah, and a lot of times I do. Where I'm, kind of playing different notes from one fret.
What do you think?
I would love him to play us out. If
Now, I have a request, and it's not a song.
Too many notes?
I just want to hear you chicken pick. I want to hear some fun country rip.
That's really good to do when you're not warmed up.
Oh, don't do it then. That's not warmed up. Yeah, all right.
I got that.
Awesome.
Thank you so much, Steve. Appreciate
it. Hey guys, we hope you enjoyed this. We'd like to give a huge shout out to our friends at ENGL Amplification, Ernie Ball Music Man Guitars. And for more content like this, be sure to like and subscribe and check us out at AmericanMusical.com.